Hello everyone, and welcome to Severely Overlooked, a series where I analyze severe weather events from the past I feel like aren't discussed enough. Not all of the events I cover on here were exactly what you would call world-changing, but even your everyday thunderstorm can teach you so much about the weather, as we've seen on this channel very often. For our first episode, I want to briefly discuss an event that happened locally near where I live, and it was in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, which, now that I think about it, may have contributed to not as much chatter about the storm. But why is that? On the evening of August 4th, 2020, a large hailstorm impacted the city of Jacksonville, Florida. How big was the hail? Well, according to the official National Weather Service page on this event, hail reports generally range from around 1 to 2 inches in diameter. However, radar indicates that heavier, larger hail even could have fallen elsewhere. We need to pause the weather talk for just a moment though, because before I want to get to the meteorological details of this story, I want to discuss a social aspect of it. As a longtime Floridian of almost 18 years now, I know many people around here don't take typical severe weather events very seriously. If it's not a tornado or a really strong hurricane, many people don't really care too much. I hope this series helps demonstrate why any form of severe weather should be taken very seriously. And there's also a lot of misconceptions about severe weather, such as how hail falls in such hot states like Florida, and we will get to that in a minute. But still, 1 to 2 inch hailstones falling on a city of nearly 1 million people on a sweltering hot August day. I know that would have stirred a lot of buzz usually. And maybe it did, to be fair, but it's been a long 3 years and it's kind of hard to remember, honestly. But considering there's no videos on YouTube about it and most of the articles are just from, reports from that day and aren't like retrospective videos like this is, it hasn't been discussed too much. But I do feel like there is a very particular influencer behind that, a factor, and by that I mean I feel like the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdowns played a role in why we may have possibly missed out on seeing the possible bigger hail reports that could have possibly been produced by this storm. Now, if you've been paying attention to politics over the past 3 years, well, I'm sorry for starters, but you probably know that governmentally speaking, Florida didn't take the COVID-19 pandemic too seriously, in my opinion at least, compared to other states. Whether that's right or not is not really for me to get into this video, that's up to you. But however, down where I live in Clay County, lockdowns were pretty loose, and weren't really even lockdowns. You were still allowed to go outside and such, just most people didn't really want to because there wasn't anywhere to go. Everywhere was closed and shut down. And we weren't supposed to be around other people. But, if you wanted to put on a face mask, or honestly even know if there was nobody around, just go for a walk and stuff still, you could. However, this storm didn't happen in Clay County. It happened a little to the north, up in Duval County, which is basically just the city of Jacksonville. And fun fact, Jacksonville is the biggest city by land area in the lower 48, which is just, everywhere in the United States but Hawaii and Alaska. Again, let me reiterate. A historic hailstorm hit a city of nearly 1 million people in the southernmost state in the country, and we barely talk about this? And it was only 3 years ago, in the middle of the social media age? Why is that? I'm assuming in the turmoil of the pandemic, most casual people weren't particularly worried about the weather. Also, with little incentive to leave the house, more people weren't out and about during the storm. Less people outside or in the viewing area of the storm when it's occurring, less likely we get reports of hail. Granted, I don't think we missed out on any crazy amount of hail, but 2 inches of hail is still pretty big for this time of year in Florida. In fact, August 4th, 2020 was only the third time since 1955 that the entire state of Florida recorded 2-inch hail within the month of August. Now, some people may be wondering, how the hell does 2-inch hail fall in one of the hottest places in the country? Let's address how that works now. To help understand how hail falls even in extremely warm climates, we need to have a basic understanding of how thunderstorms work. I'll keep it short. Essentially, thunderstorms form when warm air and water vapor rises into the cooler portions of the atmosphere and then cools, which is known as condensation. This is how clouds form. Thunderstorms begin to occur when larger formations of clouds known as cumulonimbus clouds reach high into the atmosphere, tens of thousands of feet. This high in the atmosphere, it is freezing cold. Well, literally. It doesn't matter that on August 4th, 2020, it was 94 degrees, with heat indexes likely soaring well past the century mark in Jacksonville. Above those dark storm clouds, it's just a little icebox up there. In the higher portions of the lower atmosphere, or the troposphere, of Earth, it gets cold enough for ice crystals to form. These ice crystals are part of what makes lightning occur. but now we have to get back to the general process of a thunderstorm. Every thunderstorm is fueled by an updraft, or warm air being pulled into the thunderstorm. This air is pulled tens of thousands of feet into the air, cooled, condensed, and turned into raindrops. When these drops get too big for the updraft to hold, they fall to earth as rain. It takes a particularly powerful updraft to hold up hailstones due to their weight. These kinds of updrafts are often only found within severe thunderstorms. The stronger the updraft, the longer the hail can stay in the storm and accumulate mass. But what goes up has to come down. Now, in many circumstances, it can be difficult to spot hail in Florida, because while Florida's warm climate does not necessarily hinder the formation of hail initially, it does, however, make it hard for large hail to form. On the first coast of Florida, what hail we usually do get is typically 1 inch in diameter or less, which is below severe limits, with some rare exceptions. I've only ever seen hail twice in my life, and I've lived here for 18 years. But the misconception on hail in warm climates does have some sense to it, and maybe even a bit of truth. Because sure, think about it, hail can form anywhere within Florida, but if it's not very large hail, it will likely melt quickly through the atmosphere, and especially after it hits the ground. Long-lived thunderstorms that lead to actual accumulation on the ground you can notice easily are very rare here. This is also me going out on a limb here, but due to the isolated nature of a lot of these supercells that do end up dropping hail, the temperature quickly skyrockets back up on summer days after the storm passes, leaving any hail left to simmer in 80-90 degree heat in the high UV summer sun. Even within the storm, the temperatures rarely fall below 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you want to see hail in Florida, it takes good positioning and you have to be quick about it. So, what exactly happened on that balmy summer night in Jacksonville? What I'm about to describe is my analysis of the event through archival radar data. For official information from the National Weather Service, I will leave their analysis on the storm down below. The East Coast sea breeze slowly crawled through Duval County throughout the 5 p.m. rush hour before crossing into western Duval around 6 p.m. At the same time, what seems to be an outflow boundary from a previous thunderstorm is seen drifting out of the northwest from Georgia. If we look at a wider scan, we can see there was actually a second storm that sent out a more volatile gust front. With the movement of the sea breeze, warm, humid air is lifted into the atmosphere, which there was plenty of. Quickly, a supercell thunderstorm bubbled up over western Jacksonville. The cell first became visible on radar around 6:40 p.m., and within 40 minutes, it was raining hell and, well, hail on Jacksonville. Even on reflectivity radar, you can see a large plume and heavier precipitation erupt within the storm. Deep reds, browns, and especially those bright pinks indicate very heavy rain or hail. On the bottom, we have what is known as the vertically integrated liquid product. To put it simply, a measure of how much liquid is in the atmosphere. When you start to see purples, pinks, whites, and especially that black void, that's the radar telling us that there is a very high likelihood of hail or extremely heavy rain. Looking at the scan, hail potential seemed to max out at around 7:20 p.m., with the hail likely only lasting for about 40 minutes at most between 7 p.m. and 7:40 p.m. But you see, even after that, there are other cells around with high hail potential, trying to bubble back up. This was obviously a very volatile atmosphere. And that volatile atmosphere may have helped put a quick end to the hailstorm. As you probably noticed, what was a discrete cell quickly got absorbed or merged into approaching thunderstorms from the south and the northwest. That outflow boundary I mentioned likely helped fuel these thunderstorms further rain-wise, but overall it quickly became a disorganized blob of just rain, not really organized structure. Though not severe anymore, thunderstorms lasted into the 10 p.m. hour and into the late overnight hours as well. Aside from the article provided by the National Weather Service, information on this event is somewhat scarce. From what I can tell, no major damage occurred due to the storm. I think it's pretty safe to assume that maybe a few windshields or windows got cracked, but otherwise, no harm, no foul. Another reason it can be fun to discuss smaller scale events like this is sometimes it really can just be a relatively, happy ending? I don't have to end the video with dozens died and thousands of lives were changed forever. Isn't that just swell? I hope you enjoyed this episode of Severely Overlooked. This is my first attempt at making a more documentary-style, editing and research-oriented video, so I hope you really did enjoy it. I hate to pry, but if you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I want more people to become weather aware, and this storm was a perfect example as to why. I think it's fair to say we're pretty lucky the storm happened in the middle of the pandemic where most people were home and at relatively low threat level. I'm certain that played a massive role in mitigating overall damages. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about this one, y'all. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you next time. Stay safe.